Hello and welcome back. Eddie Radosevich, George Stoya here from the SoonerScoop.com studios on Campus Corner. Josh McCuistion back in Houston HQ, and welcome in OU Texas week. Oklahoma and Texas both obviously coming in off the bye week. Let's just kind of set the table for what is a massive week, obviously, in Norman and Austin. Steve Sarkisian met with the media today on Monday. We'll get into a little bit of what he had to say and talking to the Austin media. Brent Venables will meet with the media on Tuesday at 11:30 as per usual during an OU game week. We'll talk to some of the players on Monday night this evening. I know that we talked to Mike Hawkins last Wednesday, which we kind of went over during the practice report last week, but a bunch of stuff, bunch of coverage planned here, not just on the SoonerScoop.com YouTube channel, but over at SoonerScoop.com, where it is a great time to join if you are looking to do so. And we got a special promo right now, 50% off annual membership. All you got to do is go to SoonerScoop.com, use the promo code BOOMER, BOOMER, if you are interested in taking advantage of the flash sale as we head into one of my favorite weeks of the season. And I think that, gentlemen, welcome in. It's probably the same can be said as for both of you guys. This is one of the best weeks of the year, OU Texas.
It's awesome. A little bit stressful week, always a little bit busier around here. I know we're going to do some extra shows this week, but should be a fun one. And kind of crazy to think this is the first time since 2000 that OU has played the number one team in the country during the regular season. The first time since 1984 that OU played a number one Texas team, which obviously is the infamous game, 15-15 tie.
Sure.
OU apparently got screwed, according to my dad, who was there that day on the sidelines for Oklahoma. So
I think I would take, I don't know. I was going to say I would take the crappy weather that they had in 1984 if it meant that we're going to avoid the triple digits, but that'd be one of those things like, do I really want that as standing inside the state fair in the rain
it's
for
part of the lore.
hours?
It's part of the lore of OU Texas, is it always being miserably hot that day.
The first 2:30 kickoff for OU Texas since 2017. It's going to be a little bit different this year going into it. Josh, welcome in OU Texas week. Both teams coming off of a bye. We talked about that last week on the Unofficial 40. First time that Oklahoma's going into OU Texas weekend off of a bye since 2006. A double-digit underdog. Obviously, Texas opened at about 16 points. It's now been bet down to about 14 and a half, really, wherever you want to.
That's a big number.
It's a massive number, especially for this game. As you'll hear from Steve Sarkisian, this game has been decided by one touchdown or less, one-score possession game, 9 of the last 10 years, which if you kind of put all of the success Oklahoma's had in this game, maybe that's a little bit surprising. But just in terms of the overview basis here, I'll just put it this way. Oklahoma have a chance this week against Texas, the number one ranked team in the country, thanks in a large part to an absolutely fantastic first weekend of October in the college sports world.
After last weekend, I mean, first of all, I think you have to give a real hat tip to Joe Castiglione for not scheduling a game for Oklahoma in week 6. I mean, that's genius. I know Joe C. Jr. said the same thing. That's just good business. But yeah, guys, I think the thing people will mistake this week when a lot of OU fans are going to hear Texas is going to win this game. They're going to see lots of predictions and that kind of stuff. I think the thing they're going to mistake is that nobody's given OU a chance. I think the problem is there's smaller opportunities for Oklahoma to win this game, in my opinion. There's more varied ways I can see Texas winning this game than I can Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma kind of has a plan. They've kind of got a road they have to walk down. And if they can do that, which I think there's absolutely a case for them doing so, if they can do that, they can win this game. It's just like I said, if it gets into turnover troubles or Oklahoma's not playing cleanly with penalties and stuff like that, like a lot of the stuff we saw against Auburn, Oklahoma can't afford to do that. They can't give away big plays because Texas is better offensively than Auburn is, has a better quarterback, is going to do more to attack you. As much as I like Hugh Freeze, who is the head coach of Auburn, and I know that for sure.
You got it.
Steve Sarkisian I nailed it, is a better play caller. He's one of the best in the business. So he's going to present Oklahoma with some problems. And I think Oklahoma's, to me, it's a lot like Tennessee. They've got to keep this game in the 20s. They've got to manage it. They've got to eat some clock at times. They've just got to do some things to manage this game a little bit. And I'm interested to see how they handle that.
I think what's really interesting about this game is I feel like we know a heck of a lot more about Oklahoma than we do Texas.
Interesting.
I think that Texas, you look at the Michigan game, that was a great win for them, right? But how good is Michigan really? I don't know. They didn't perform well this past week. I think that they're, probably a little bit of an above average football team, but not a great football team. And then you look at Oklahoma. I feel like we kind of know what Oklahoma is. They've got a great defense. The offense is struggling. They've opened up some things with Michael Hawkins. I think there's still some question marks there with Hawkins in terms of what he can do in this game and what this offense might look like. And Matt gives OU maybe some hope going into this. But for me, is Texas for real? Is Texas really, right now, they're ranked as the best team in the country? Are they really that? I don't know. I think we're going to find out not only this week, but next week when they play Georgia.
Sure.
But I think you look around college football this past weekend and you say, man, anybody can beat anybody. So I don't see why OU couldn't go in and win this game. We know that too. This is a game that you always joke about, throw the records out. And Steve Sarkisian said that too, that they're not looking at it as a two touchdown favorite. But I really do think that Oklahoma can hang around in this game with their defense. And if you can find something on offense, some sort of spark, maybe you're able to run the football, or maybe you get a Deion Burks back and that opens up some more things for you offensively, they can have a chance in this one.
Josh, I know that you've started to look at it a little bit just in terms of what Texas was able to do, and the under the hood will be out later this week in terms of what Texas did against Michigan. Obviously, Oklahoma defensively matching up against Steve Sarkisian, that one of the top interest of headlines to you going into this game.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we talked about this last year, guys, even 2 years ago before we knew of the Davis Bevel experiment. But Brent Venables against Steve Sarkisian, that's about as good as you're going to get from two minds matching up. And I know Zach Alley's defensive coordinator, and I think Alley's done an outstanding job. There's no question the jump they've made as a defensive unit watching them this year. But you're watching just some very smart guys go to work against each other here. And it's going to be fun to kind of watch that chess match and really the ways Oklahoma wants to attack Texas, because you look at that Michigan game, and I was noted to George before we started recording, Texas's opening drive, they get into 3rd and long multiple times. They threw the ball 10 of their 12 plays. I mean, that doesn't reek of a team that knows they can line up and just physically play with Michigan. Now, again, Michigan's got the best defensive tackle pairing in the country. I'm not saying it's the same thing, but the way Oklahoma has played against the run this year, I'm very interested to see if Texas feels they can come in and bully Oklahoma with that very experienced offensive line that I've said over and over. I think Kelvin Banks is a special talent, and I think he's played much better this year. I was kind of down on him a little bit as a sophomore, but I thought he's kind of gotten over whatever last year was. I thought he's looked better on tape for what I've seen. But the rest of that offensive line, I think is more experienced, and they are really good. I like Jake Majors at center pretty well, but there's not a lot of like, oh, these are all NFL guys. This isn't that 2017 Oklahoma offensive line where those guys are all still collecting paychecks. So I'm interested to see how Texas views that. Do they think they can line up and just kind of go at Oklahoma? And does Oklahoma choose to run that 3 down front? Do they go back to a more traditional 4 to maybe try and apply some pressure to Quinn Ewers with their front 4? I think that's going to be really interesting to watch. And frankly, I think you'll see it evolve through the game.
On Monday, Steve Sarkisian did hold his OU Texas Week press conference, and here he is talking about the matchup with Brent Venables' defense.
One, I have a ton of respect for Coach Venables. He's a tremendous defensive coach, and that's been throughout time, right? Going all the way back to Kansas State and then, what he did at Clemson and OU and now being the head coach at OU. Like us, we take a lot of pride. If we get 2 weeks to prepare offensively, we feel pretty good that we're going to put together a great game plan, and our guys can execute it. I feel the same way about Coach Venables on the defensive side. You give him 2 weeks, they're going to have a really good defensive plan, and their guys will be dialed in, and that's when it comes down to execution. That's when it comes down to some in-game adjustments to adjust to whatever they're doing. But knowing that, I think one of the things coming out of really the last couple of years is, what's on tape might not necessarily be what we're going to get. And so we've got to do a great job in game of adjusting, especially early on, to whatever they present to us. I think one thing we've learned this season is that, the tablets or the iPads and the video on the sidelines has been really helpful to communicate to our players and to show them so that we can make those adjustments even quicker. And I think this weekend that's going to be important as well.
You go back to last year's, win, and obviously the last couple years down at the Cotton Bowl have left for some of the more memorable endings in terms of OU Texas over the 119 times that these two teams have played, particularly the last 3 years with Caleb's comeback, and then obviously last year with DG leading the game-winning drive. But for the same matter, you talk about Oklahoma defense last year and the start that they had, the 3 turnovers. That was a big point of emphasis, not just in the game last year, but obviously the way that thing ended up. You probably don't win that game if you don't force the turnovers that they did.
I mean, right off the bat, the interception on, was it the second play of the game?
Yep. Gentry Williams had a turnover. Kendall Dolby also had a interception, and then Peyton Bowen had the I believe third quarter fumble of Quinn Ewers at about midfield that changed the trajectory of that.
Yeah, Oklahoma's going to have to do that again this year. I think for them to win this game or be in this game late in that fourth quarter, they're going to have to create some of those turnovers, whether that's, Josh and I were talking about this Oklahoma defense. What is the approach? Do you bring pressure on Quinn Ewers and try and force him into some bad decisions? You saw them do that against Nico, and they got home a couple times on the strip sacks, right? Like, if you can create those, now the offense has to go cash them in, right? But I think that's an approach that's really interesting. Or do you sit back and say, hey, we don't think you can run the football. We're going to drop, 7-8 guys in coverage, and maybe you get a bad throw from Quinn Ewers and you force some interceptions. But if Oklahoma's going to win this football game, and it's like every year, we talk about it in this game every year, it's the team that can run the football and the team that can create the most turnovers. It's typically the one that wins this football game. And so I think for Oklahoma, it's going to be very similar to that Tennessee game where you've got to force those turnovers and then you got to cash in. Because if you can cash in, you're going to have a very good chance to win this thing.
Oklahoma runs the ball for 201 yards last season at the Cotton Bowl, second highest total of the year. In terms of, just real quick, with OU defensively, what's the realistic expectation if they were able to get somebody like a Deshaun McCullough back this week? Obviously, it'd be his season debut. It seems like they are, progressing in the right direction as far as getting him onto the field. And something else I had kind of forgotten about. Last year, who led OU in tackles the OU Texas game?
Deshaun McCullough?
Jaron Canick.
Wow.
13 tackles last season, which I do not remember. One of them being a sack, including a sack on Saturday. So can Deshaun add anything to this OU defense that's already, obviously playing extremely well going into the Cotton Bowl?
I think so. And I think it's more so we'll see him in different packages. I could see them showing some things. Again, it's kind of like that Tennessee game. I think we're going to see a defense with some different packages that we haven't seen yet. And I think there's some chances of Deshaun McCullough coming in on some of those, blitz packages where you've got R. Mason out there, you've got Grayson Holton, you've got PJ, and then you've got Deshaun, and they're all coming at the same time, and you don't know where they're coming from. So I think that's where you'll see him. I think they really like Samuel Masigo at that cheetah spot. I think he's been playing pretty good there. I think you're still going to see probably some Woody Washington there. I wonder if they mix in some of those younger safeties as well, maybe playing and rotating. Maybe move a Peyton Bowen up and play some cheetah too. I don't know, but I think you will see Deshaun McCullough for the first time this season. And he played a big role in the game last year. He was big on the fourth down goal line stand. So I think we'll see him.
Obviously, there's going to be a lot of attention placed on Mike Hawkins, making his first career start at the Cotton Bowl, coming off of his first career start 2 weeks ago at Auburn. Steve Sarkisian was asked about just kind of preparing for the Oklahoma run game, whether it be Jackson Arnold or Mike Hawkins. Obviously, Hawkins is going to be slated to make history, being the first true freshman to start in the OU Texas game. Here is Steve Sarkisian talking about the OU quarterback situation.
Well, I think we have to spend time on their scheme, and the quarterback running the football in their scheme is a reality, whether it was Jackson earlier in the season or now with Michael Hawkins. So the quarterback's going to run and run at some point, whether it's designed runs or they both have the ability to tuck it and run. So it's not that we have to adjust necessarily for two different styles within the scheme of the player. I think what Michael Hawkins does is he does provide that element of, they can throw it, they can run it with design runs, but his first touchdown there against Auburn was a pass that he tucked it and took off and ran. And so that's where we've got to be really cognizant of him in the pocket, that yeah, we want to try to get to the quarterback, but our rush lanes are really critical in this game because when he pulls it, it's not to get 4 or 5 or 6 yards. I mean, he went 50 for a touchdown against Auburn. So we got to be really mindful of his ability to extend plays and then create explosives with his legs.
I know it's kind of blasphemy, and I'm probably not supposed to say this, but for some reason I do like Steve Sarkisian. I like listening to him talk about football.
I think he's a smart football coach, and I think that you look at his journey and it's a lot of perseverance, personally in his life, and I think that the culture of that program, you've definitely seen it shift under his direction. I don't think you could say that under Tom Herman or Charlie Strong. I think that we all saw that from the outside. I think that the Texas is for real in terms of the direction of this program, the job they've done recruiting, and all of that.
Josh, what do you make of offensive-wise? I know that they're going to be having basically a week of preparation coming in off of the bye week. How much would you expect them to not necessarily change things with what they were doing with Mike Hawkins, but you would expect that quarterback run game to be a big part of what Oklahoma tries to do on Saturday?
Yeah, and I think that is – George is right in saying earlier that we probably know more about Oklahoma than we do Texas. But what these two teams want to do offensively, I think Oklahoma has a little advantage of mystery here. Because what we saw against Auburn, to me, was just kind of a watered down version, and obviously far less RPO than what we'd seen in the first 3 games. Now, with 2 weeks to prepare, kind of tailoring things to Michael Hawkins, there's a lot of possibilities. There's a lot of directions they can go with some of this stuff. So I think you're going to see more called run. I think you're going to see some stuff where I'd love to see some like quick speed option stuff to the outside with him. Really some of the bootleg stuff. Like I thought that was very limited in the Auburn game, which frankly surprised me with, kind of what Auburn has up front and, not being sure of what Oklahoma was going to do with the offensive line. And I think that's the other side of things, guys. When I think people forget, people said, oh, well, Oklahoma can't run on Texas. They said the same thing last year when Texas had, Byron Murphy and Tavondre Sweat, probably the two best, the best tandem of defensive tackles in college football. And Oklahoma ran for 201 yards. It really was putting that Dylan Gabriel wrinkle in where they ran with him a lot more and did some different things. I think you're going to see some stuff like that. Oklahoma's going to try to mix it up a little bit. They're not going to be dominant on the ground. I don't think anyone should have that illusion. But if you can find a way to cheat yourself to 125 yards or something like that, I think that's a number you can win with. You've got to just at least keep Texas to where they have to respect that. And I still think there's some big plays available in that Texas secondary. It's not like it was last year where I thought they really struggled. But if you could get Deion Burks back and maybe find a way to get him downfield, Michael Hawkins showed you he can hit that ball. He can throw some of those deep balls. And Oklahoma, if they can connect on a couple of those, and like I said, kind of stretch this game, kind of shorten this game, I think there's avenues for success here. I just think Oklahoma has to play a very clear type of game. They have to have a very concise idea of what's going to succeed.
Dylan Gabriel, very effective with his legs a year ago, career high 113 yards. First Oklahoma quarterback, I believe, to go over 250 plus, over 100 on the ground in the OU Texas game. Obviously won Big 12 Player of the Week, all that kind of stuff. Just in terms of what you can be expected, it's going to be interesting. And obviously, the Oklahoma offensive line, much healthier this go-around than they have been at any point in the first 5 games of the season.
It's going to be huge getting Jake Taylor back. Obviously, we saw him a week ago at Auburn. But let me ask you guys this. Do you think – I was thinking about this today doing my mailbag. Michael Hawkins, he's going to be the leading rusher in this game, yes or no, on either side?
Oh.
I don't know. That's a good question.
I think I'm going to say yes. Texas has not been able to run the ball very effectively. I think that's one spot where Oklahoma's going to be able to stop them. And then I think offensively, quarterback run game for Oklahoma is going to be a big part of what they're doing.
Sure.
And I think him just scrambling around, I could see him getting close to 100 yards
rushing. It would be interesting, and I know that maybe there's not a lot of people that would think it's a popular decision if they did throw a couple quarterback wrinkles out there and have Jackson Arnold carry the ball a couple times. I don't know if you want to do that because of obviously the way that his inability to protect the football, right? That's why he's not playing anymore. But, I think anything is on deck, all hands on deck this week.
Trick plays.
Sure.
I wouldn't be shocked if you saw something where Arnold and Hawkins are both out there, some sort of package. I mean, I think when you give a team 2 weeks and they're trying to find anything on offense, I think you could say anything could go.
No doubt about it. It's kind of a cliche talking point going into the game, but I think as we have seen here over the last couple years, the highs and lows, the momentum swings at the Cotton Bowl are unlike any other experience that you can get in the college football world. Steve Sarkisian did talk about that on Monday as well.
It's fascinating. I think 9 of the last 10 years, this game's been decided by one score. And so to think like whatever happens in this game early on is just that's the way it's gonna go is probably not a reality. And we've been on it multiple ways. Our first year we jumped out to a really big lead and they came back and got us. The next year we kind of ran away with that game. Last year we fell behind. We came all the way back to take the lead, and then ultimately they went down to score at the end to beat us. And so I think that the key to this drill to me is emotions run high in games like this, and most notably in this game. And I'm not here to deny that our players won't have some emotions in this game, and I think they deserve that. They should have it. The key is not to cross over that threshold where we get emotional. And I felt like in last year's game we got a little emotional at times. We had an unsportsmanlike conduct after the block punt for the touchdown. One of our players took his helmet off. That's uncharacteristic for us. And so I want to make sure that we stay true to who we are, that we do have emotion, and there's nothing wrong with that, but we fight the urge to get emotional. So I think when we get emotional, that's when some of those types of things happen that can cause to put us in a position that maybe we not be unsuccessful with. So that's what I'm looking for, and that's what kind of I'm preaching to throughout the week to get ourselves in the right frame of mind for Saturday at 2:49 or whenever we kick off.
It's late kickoff, 2:49. I think it is scheduled for 2:30, but after all the bells and whistles, and which I think is like my favorite part about OU Texas, like the 25, 30 minutes leading up to kickoff, nothing like it.
Yeah, the band.
When
the
awesome.
Texas band comes into OU side and they go,
absolutely. It's one of the best parts about the whole weekend. And this comes off of a college football weekend this past weekend, obviously, a little game day rewind here. Even though Oklahoma didn't have any games, I think it was perfect because you were able to sit around and watch the madness that was. Congratulations to Vanderbilt. Don't think we get to say that very often. They knock off Alabama. But watching the game Saturday night, even over in Fayetteville, I think we talked about this last week that there were some things Oklahoma did, and obviously they didn't take advantage of how well they played defensively. But even when Tennessee was here a couple weeks ago, there was kind of some groundwork in terms of if Arkansas was able to take advantage or do some things that Oklahoma wasn't able to, they were going to be in that game, and that kind of came to fruition on Saturday night.
Yeah, Arkansas basically did exactly what Oklahoma did defensively.
They didn't turn the ball over 3 times.
Exactly. And, I think that Arkansas's offense also found some success in certain things that, that obviously Oklahoma did not. But, the whole weekend, though, I mean, it's funny because going into the weekend, everybody's like, oh, this is a terrible slate of college football.
Which is usually a basis for, something zany's going to happen.
Exactly. And I thought around the league you found out a lot about some SEC teams. Georgia and Auburn was an interesting game for a while. Georgia and eventually just overpowered them. But Auburn was hanging around a little bit in that game. And then the Alabama-Vanderbilt game. Josh, I don't know about you, but I've never seen.
Were you more shocked by that outcome in Nashville or just the absolute ass whooping that was laid down in College Station?
I wasn't surprised. I wasn't surprised by that. I've said Missouri. I've been saying it since the preseason. Missouri is fraudulent. That doesn't mean they're not, a decent team, but there's people talking about them winning the SEC. Like, That's just not. I mean, they got their ass kicked.
Ole Miss with a nice win out in Columbia, South Carolina. That was a little bit of an ass whooping.
I don't think South Carolina is very good.
Josh, what did you make of some of the SEC results from this past weekend, and obviously lining up for OU Texas this weekend? LSU, Ole Miss is a big game coming up this Saturday as well.
Yeah, well, first off, I want to tip my hat to George for beating me to the troll of I wonder if Tennessee tried not to score in this game as well. I thought that was perfectly played, and we all respect Josh Heupel, but that video proves they weren't trying to score. Okay, I don't know what I saw in the first half, but that's fine. Guys, you nailed it. Like, this was what you saw for 4 quarters with Arkansas and Tennessee was what Oklahoma and Tennessee was in the second half. where you had a really mobile quarterback, a guy able to make plays with his feet. And as the game got going, he kind of found his way. Now, Taylor Green's got a lot more experience. He kind of got going earlier than Michael Hawkins did. But for all the OU fans that have been like, well, what would have happened if Michael Hawkins would have played? Maybe you're looking at it. Maybe that's what that game would have looked like if Oklahoma had Michael Hawkins from beginning to end. So, obviously we'll never know. But I think that was really interesting. Diego Pavia, is he not like the spirit animal of college football? Like, just cussing up a storm. Like, my daughters are watching with me and they're like, what did he say? And it was amazing. And you guys are dead on. I had told Tiffany early in the day, I was like, if you got any errands you want to run, this is a Saturday to do it. You got something you want me to do? Okay. Like, I want to be around the games, but if I don't have my whole, if they don't have my whole attention all Saturday, it's going to be fine. And I thought of you guys. I was like, wow, they get to sit around and watch this. They never get to watch a weekend like this. And guys, I'd have to go back and really think about it, but I would bet it's been since 2007 and that crazy year we all remember that anybody's had a week like that where it was just one thing after another. And Lord, guys, Cal should have beat Miami. Like they just spit that away, and that would have been one more wild upset. As far as Missouri and A&M, I'm more surprised than George was, very much in the way that game played out. But I thought A&M would win that game. I thought Missouri hadn't been good enough offensively, hadn't been tested on defense. Because people forget they escaped Vandy a couple weeks ago. Like they very narrowly got out of there with their lives. So Connor Wegman, I don't know who that guy is compared to what we saw against Notre Dame. That was an entirely different animal. And if he's going to play like that, A&M is going to be a problem.
Josh, I think you actually nailed it with the 2007 comparison, because I think I saw a tweet over the weekend that it was like week 5 or week 6 of the 2007 season that there was like 9 top 25 teams that lost in one weekend or something. And I think this past week there was like 8 or something like that.
That sounds about right, somewhere around there.
It was something like that, but they were comparing it to the 2007 season.
Absolutely incredible performances. You start talking about some of the more disappointing teams across the country, and Florida State, I think, is obviously the first team that comes to mind, or the first school that comes to mind. There's 2 in the Big 12. Kansas and Oklahoma State right now, both winless in Big 12 play. Kansas 1-5 now after a loss on Saturday out in Tempe to Arizona State. Oklahoma State actually just doesn't show up. They get throttled, fall behind 31-7 in Stillwater.
Oklahoma State is like Oklahoma, but if Oklahoma's defense was terrible.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, they are not that's a bad football team right now.
They just got absolutely.
Guys, have they just quit? Like, I think that's a quit watch. Like that looked like we don't even need to be here.
West Virginia was running the ball so effectively on Saturday in the first half that there were guys literally running 5 or 6 yards past the line of scrimmage without being touched at all.
They had 2 touchdown drives that they did not throw a pass.
And they didn't need to.
Yeah.
They were averaging 8 yards, I believe, a carry up in Stillwater. That was an ass whooping. And then last but not least, we do want to give a shout out. Congratulations, Marcus Major and the Minnesota Golden Gophers. They knock off, who was it? Southern California, 24-17. Looks like USC's
Who's
now
the head guy out
3-2
there now? I can't even remember.
I mean, was that post-game press conference not just like
what was the
chef's
question?
kiss
It was like,
it had to do with the one of the final plays of the game,
Yep.
Minnesota getting in, and they basically asked one of the players next to Lincoln Riley just kind of his perspective on the final play, if he got in or not, and then you had a very valid question. And you had a head coach basically say, like, who cares about my players' opinions is basically what it boiled down to.
Yeah, and the way that they do those press conferences over there, it's very interesting that it's Lincoln up there with players. I don't know. It just
a lot of numbers out there, but the one that was thrown around on Saturday night with Lincoln Riley now 5-7 in his last 12 games. That is with a group of coaches that expect to be in the hot seat here in a couple weeks, or if not already.
Yeah.
I don't think it's hurting.
Is USC's defense now their best unit that they have? I mean, like that's a question.
Who do they have this week?
Well, they have Penn State coming to Los Angeles. Another one of those big games coming off of October 12th and October 12th, October 19th, both fantastic weekends in the college football world. Game day headed up to Eugene, Oregon for Oregon-Ohio State this week, which is a fantastic
Rooting
game.
for Dylan. That'd be a big win for him.
Be awesome. I think that everybody will. And then, obviously leading into OU Texas Saturday, and then October 19th is a big slate. Oklahoma and South Carolina is it was announced today officially. It's either going to be 11 a.m. or 11:45. We'll find out that kind of information here coming up on Saturday evening. So
I think they also said it'll either be on ESPN or SEC Network.
okay,
So
for
we'll
the
find that
OU
out.
South Carolina game,
Correct.
in 2 weeks back here. I believe it's homecoming. So, all right, that's going to do it for a Game Day Rewind. We will obviously be back here on the SoonerScoop.com YouTube channel come Saturday, or we'll be here Saturday, but well before then on Tuesday after Brent Venables meets with the media on Tuesday morning. We'll be talking to some of the players on Monday night. And it should be a fun one. OU Texas week here as we roll down to the Cotton Bowl for the 120th playing of OU Texas. So for Josh and George, I'm Eddie. We will see you right back here on the SoonerScoop.com YouTube channel.